For 15 years, I have been lucky enough to be an anxiety coach and therapist, and also working with those that just are going through really stressful periods of life where stress is either tipped over into anxiety, and some of the symptoms that we experience, and sometimes we don't know that we're anxious. Okay, that was me many moons ago. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't actually realize that non-stop fearful thinking, non-stop intrusive thoughts, non-stop exhaustion, inability to sleep, constant rising of panic even though something wasn't coming, there was no wolf at the door, so to speak. Excessively worrying about everything. I didn't realize that all of this was anxiety. I just thought that I was stressed, and a lot of the time I actually thought that's just the way that we all were. So here's the thing though, is that when I'm dealing with clients about their symptoms, how it's showing up for them, and it seems like this very long drawn out process for how we're actually going to transform that, which it's not. I always ask them, what is it that you want? Like, you have to give me a few words for what it is that you actually want to feel and experience, which is genuinely the opposite, obviously, of what it is you're experiencing right now. And that's usually, I want to feel calm. That is the first thing. I want to feel calm. I want to feel confident again. I want to feel like myself again. And those are usually the three top things. I want to feel calm, I want to feel confident, and I want to feel like myself. Almost everyone will give me those exact same answers, but calm is always the top one. So usually then I always follow that up with, tell me what practice of calm then, or how you're developing your own confidence, or when you take time to be with yourself, if you want to feel like your old self again, when are you taking time to hang out with yourself, your true self? Not all the doing, not all the worrying, not all the busyness, not dealing with whatever major event that has maybe kicked off the crash. And I usually get this face of just, they can't answer the question. So here's the thing. If the opposite of what we're experiencing, we don't have a practice in our life for it, then we don't have a way to build calm. We don't have time to be ourself, to feel like our old self. And we don't have the confidence that we used to have because we don't have any practices in our life that are actually feeding that. And so little by little, as we let ourselves go, little by little, as we get caught in our mind, and overthinking actually has become a habit, worrying about things has become a habit. We don't get anxiety and then start excessively worrying. We don't get anxiety and then have an inability to rest. We don't get anxiety and then all of a sudden develop fearful thinking. Those were habits that were already there that have gotten out of hand, that have gotten to a point where they're excessive and your mind has started ruling instead of you ruling your mind. And there wasn't a consistent practice for peace, for calm, for being yourself, for confidence, that gave you natural confidence, not I just look okay on the outside, but on the inside I am really, really stressed and anxious. There was no practice to begin with. And sometimes people will say to me, and I'm like, okay, what have you ever tried then or done that gives you those things? Let's just talk about calm. What have you done in the past that helps you feel calm? They'll usually give me examples of tools that they've used already when they're anxious or already when the panic is rising. And they'll often say breathing. They've been to a therapist, or they've heard about it and they've tried breathing and it worked. And I'm like, cool, okay, so how many times a day are you doing a breathing practice? Or how many times a week are you going to a breathing class? Or, when are you breathing intentionally? And again, I get the face where it's like, I'm not. And I'm like, okay, so you had a practice that brought you calm, helped you feel like you were with yourself, and helped you feel confident, like you were back in control of your symptoms, and you don't do it regularly. So, but it's really common because, and the other thing is that I know they might say, oh, I tried meditating and I tried, but they've never actually been taught how to do it properly. And the thing is about severe stress and anxieties, we give ourselves such a hard time that we end up with more stress and more anxiety because we're beating ourselves up in the process, because we don't want to be feeling this way. There can be a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. What's wrong with me? Why can't I cope? All of this kind of, talk, which actually fuels the problem. Now, here's the thing. If a client has never had a tool or a practice for how to deal with their mind and their thoughts, or how to go to a space of calm, I'm like, why are you giving yourself a hard time about where you're at if you've never been taught? You're giving yourself a hard time about something that you can't know what you don't know. So if you've never actually learned how to deal with fearful thoughts, constant thinking into the future, worrying about everything, if you've never had a way to work with that and transform it and transform your relationship to it and not buy into it and not make it mean things, then of course you're going to be severely stressed, or of course you're going to be experiencing anxiety, because if we don't have a way to work with that and we're not taught at school and we've never done kind of an intensive training or anything into it, then of course how are we supposed to know? You can't know what you don't know. And so we usually, and same goes for having a practice of peace. People give themselves a hard time because, I've tried meditating or I've tried calming myself, and they might be trying for 5 or 10 minutes, but they've never been taught properly. If you've never actually been taught how to meditate, you try and meditate when you are stressed, it is the worst experience ever, and I would not advise that you do it straight off the bat without being taught. It's like trying to ride a bike without someone guiding you through riding a bike. So if we want to cure the issue for good, we've got to go to the root cause of what's driving it. Now, the root cause of what's driving the stress and the anxiety is not the event, the person. It's nothing to do with the external. It's our perception of it. It's what we make those things mean, even if it was a traumatic experience. And the pictures are there, and that's what kicks off our panic, the rising panic. But we have to have a practice to do the opposite of what's happening, to get the opposite of what we're feeling. If we're feeling panic, if we're feeling stress, if we're feeling, what are the tools that are the opposite of that we can use to get relief, but we can also use as a prevention to cure it so it doesn't happen again. There will always be stressful periods. There will always be things that you are fearful of. There will always probably even be circumstances that you could worry about. But if you transform the way that you work your mind, which does not take long at all, the way you perceive all of that in the future is entirely different. So you actually become mentally resilient. And here's the issue that I have, is that when people go to get support from a therapist or even a GP, and I'm not calling out therapists and GPs because I know brilliant ones, they're not given this information. And they're sent down rabbit holes which involve talking about their own pain. So you end up talking about what causes you stress more and more and more. So what does that do? It actually resurfaces every time you talk about it. It resurfaces all the pain. It resurfaces the stress. And what you're actually doing through that kind of therapy, because I do talking therapy, it's just not done this way, is you're trying to find the root reason. Now, talking about things and getting them out gives you great awareness of yourself, and the information then is shared so you can get support. But awareness is a great first step, but it is not the end game. The end game is cure. And continuing to go down rabbit holes of possibly why you're like this is the most disempowering journey you could ever take, and it doesn't work. Because you're looking for a reason to back up what's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you, you just actually haven't learned how to deal with your mind yet. And if you've consistently had anxiety throughout your life, you need to do an intensive transformation of your mind. Because once you go there and you change your relationship to how you work your mind, and you do it once and you do it properly, you won't have that experience again. So the more you talk about your anxiety and your stress, trying to figure out what's wrong with you and where did it come from and why you're like this, the worse you will feel. If you're working with me, that's my job. My job is to go physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, with every single area of your life, boom, pinpoint there. We're going to start there. You need tools for there. But that's actually my job. And it's not my job to continue to pull you apart and try and find out what's wrong with you. Anxiety is a sign. It is your body going, hey, the way you've set things up, it's not working for me. This constant picturing the future and freaking out about it before it's already happened, it's not working for me. It's your way. And same with stress. It's your body's way of saying something's not working for me. Things are not in harmony, and we have to check ourselves and listen to it and pay attention. And it becomes this beautiful opportunity to be able to completely transform your relationship with yourself. That's how I see it. I'm like, great, you've got to a point where now it's so painful for you to live like this that we now have to do something about it, and we have to do something a little bit more intensively. So the second thing that we do is go down the medical route. And again, there's no discussing a cure, we discuss a band-aid. And if that doesn't work, or it is actually misdiagnosed, then it can actually end up making you feel worse. Meanwhile, you're not rectifying the way you do this. You're not talking about what's missing from here. And you're not changing up your lifestyle to be one that breeds calm, confidence, clarity, and all of the things that we're actually seeking. And it blows my head off that we are still working this way with stress and anxiety. It literally blows my head off. So there's two things that you need to do straight away. One is that you need immediate relief from the physical symptoms. Now, because this amazing mind that you have that's giving you a lot of grief is connected to the body, we have to come at it from both. So this beautiful mind-body connection, where what we do here has a direct effect on our stress hormones and our neurotransmitters and the adrenaline levels that are kicking off the anxiety. So we work from here, and then we work physically. We work with both at the same time so that they can start talking to each other again. If we don't get relief from the symptoms, and you're not sleeping, you don't have any energy, you can't focus, then actually getting to the point where we're changing up the lifestyle, because I work over 8 steps, and I'm only talking about just 2 here. Because by the time it's gotten to this point, there isn't a magic bullet. There isn't just one way of working with this, because if only the body and the mind were that simple. But it is a beautiful journey, and it ends with a recreation of your life the way that you want it. But the first thing is you've got to get physical relief. That physical relief can be done through amazing herbal medicines. It can be done through changing your diet. It can be done through how you power up and power down. It can be done through transforming the way that you're working with your thoughts on a daily basis. It can be done through just taking moments of rest, which you probably don't do very often. So the physical relief, we're useless if we don't have it. The second thing is actually having practices for calm, because unless we have practices for calming the panic in the moment, calming the mind because before you are having the symptoms of anxiety and stress, there is something you are telling yourself. There was a story running that you bought into as real, you're having an emotional response to that story, and then kaboom, you have a physical response. So the second thing is that having a way to transform those thoughts so you can get yourself back into the present moment, self-calming when you need to. But here's what most people do. They learn how to do that and then they let it go. It has to stay in. So those are the two things. One, physical natural relief. Just send me a message if you need it. I'll shoot you a link to a kit that I recommend. And two, a practice for calm. And if you don't know how to do that, that's okay, because we weren't taught at school. And even if you've learnt tools before and let them go, now is the time to bring them back in. So if you've had a long period of stress, or you're at the point of anxiety right now, I've specifically created, and this isn't just for people that are experiencing stress and anxiety, this is also for people who have never ever had a practice for calm, for dealing with their mind, self-calming, getting present and creating peace internally in their lives. They've never had a practice for that consistently. It starts with putting this thing on a leash. And it starts with understanding that all of these practices are truly magical and brilliant if they're taught properly, and they're often not, and they're often confusing. Like, I know, that was the way for me. But there's definitely two things you are going to get out of this. One is immediate relief, and two is the calm that you're actually seeking. Now, from that space of calm comes the confidence, and you get your old self back. So if you're feeling like you've been navigating muddy waters, there's been something that's knocked you off your feet, you've had long-term stress, you feel like this kind of fear of the unknown and what's going on with all the confusion and the chaos in the world has kind of gotten on top of you, then this is for you. This is about a group of us coming together and really seeing the difference. And I literally will have you taking before and after photos from day one to the end of the month, how your face changes, how your body changes when we've gotten a handle on this baby and we've actually been practicing creating peace and calm and confidence and tapping into who we really are beyond all of that and seeing what happens. So if you're interested, just drop me a message so that I can send you the details. We'll be getting started soon, and it's actually going to be a lot of fun. Yes, we're going to whip this thing into line, and that requires a little bit of discipline, but it's actually going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a lot of understanding about who you really are and see what happens when you come back into this state of calm and allow who you really are to shine moving forward. So send me a message. I've totally 100% understand how you feel if you've had a rocky time, if you're having a rocky time. But this is going to be a beautiful journey, teaching all of the loves of my life and sharing passionately from the experience that you've been in, which is how I ended up in this industry to begin with, sharing these tools passionately that have profoundly changed my life and thousands of others that I have worked with. But we are doing. No more talking. We are going to be doing peace. So I'll see you on the inside. It's super, super affordable, and shoot me a message if you are interested.